Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks at TaughtToProfit.com. Today I want to talk to you about learning from your mistakes. Specifically in this case, the mistake of going to college. I know a lot of people get angry about that and say, well, it's not a mistake to go to college because this and this. But the reality is, Pew Research Center did a recent study, and it was interesting because the adults of Americans between 18 and 34, this is when people normally leave their house, they go to college, but even after that, when they should be out of college in a job or business and living on their own, not living with their parents, 31% of them are still living with their parents. So they go to college, get out of college, and go right back to their parents. Now, that's kind of a little misleading because there's also an other section. And the other section is 22% of those people. And that could be people living with roommates in dorm rooms, so those kids are going to go right back to their parents after that. Or in prisons even. So literally about 50% of the population from the ages 18 to 34 is having to live with someone else, including parents or grandparents, in order to survive. They can't make it, and what people call a failure to launch. They have not launched out into adult life. And I know because when I was 17, I moved out, got an apartment. I was working at a fast food restaurant, which of course did not have much money coming in. I had no college. I wasn't going to college. And it was very difficult. I had to move back in with my dad because I didn't have any way of taking care of it. I mean, I could take care of myself, but I would literally have nothing. Nothing at all. And barely be able to pay for it. I'd have to eat the fast food leftovers at the fast food restaurant to survive. That's how bad it was. It was pathetic, but I was 17 years old, didn't know anything. But these are people who have been beyond high school, into college, and they're having to move back in with their parents. And this is not to be critical either. This is because these people, unfortunately, have been sold a lie. They've been told since early on, as young as they could probably remember, you got to get good grades so you can go to college, and then you can get a career and have a good life. And that's the roadmap they've been given. And they have never heard anything else except in passing. But nothing seriously telling them that they can do other things. That this is not necessarily the best path. And actually, in many cases, it's proven to be the worst thing you could possibly do. An absolute travesty and a waste of your life. And I've talked to many people over the years. I didn't go to college, so obviously my point of view is going to be a little skewed. Because I didn't have that 4 years of my life spent or more in college to then want to justify. Unfortunately, a lot of people want to justify their college and they'll get mad if you even talk about college as being a waste of most people's time. And the reality is it is. And I used to go on and talk about, well, you know, if you're going to be in a lawyer or you're going to be a doctor, something like that, you may need a degree, so college may be good for you. But I'm going to tell you something. The reality is, in many cases, that's a waste of your time too. Because with the technology and the robotics and medical science right now, doctors are becoming less and less useful. We're talking about important doctors like surgeons and things who have a real skill. You know, you could be a general practitioner, know barely anything, and just prescribe medicines and look up stuff, and you don't have to know much of anything. That's not really even a skill. And that's one of the tragic things, because the skilled positions are getting replaced by robots who can do the job better, not make the mistakes, not actually sew somebody up with a scalpel inside them or with gauze inside them, or all this nonsense you hear every now and then. And the reality is, number 3 in the list in the United States of deaths, cause of death, is doctor error from giving the wrong medicine or a mistake made in surgeries and things like this. Doctors they're number 3 on the killing factor for why you might die. Now, obviously, this isn't on purpose. They're doing their best. But the reality is these things are going to get phased out. There will be someone needed to operate the machinery or overlook it, maybe repair it. That could be something be good to go into, an engineering job or something where you learn how to repair those robots. That could be very important. But thinking you're going to go and become a general practitioner, if you think that robots are now being able to do surgeries as well or better than the best surgeons in the world, You think they're not going to phase out the general practitioner who knows barely anything and is just prescribing medicines for common things that a machine could easily figure out and perform better tests and give better results and have less mistakes in their prescriptions so less people would die? So even those kind of careers, and lawyers, the legal system, with blockchain technology, the way contracts are able to be worked out on blockchain now, and the rise of artificial intelligence, lawyers are going to be phased out as well. Now, there will always be probably some people in the mix, but if you're thinking, oh, well, I'll just go for a doctor, I'll just go for being a lawyer, I'll just go for being an engineer, except in certain cases like with robots and AI, you're probably going to get in the same position these people going for their art degree and all this nonsense, and that is going to phase out too. And you think teaching? Well, I got to go to school so I can be a teacher. Do you not believe that eventually, very quickly even, there'll be some robot or machine that will be able to teach better than humans currently can teach? And yes, there may need to be someone as an oversight, but the reality is in your K through 12 many times doesn't serve to actually teach very much. It's more of a babysitting program for parents who have to work. Both parents have to work outside the house, full-time jobs, and they can't have their kids at home and homeschool them because they can barely get by, because they made the mistake of following this path of go to school, get good grades, go to college, and you'll have a great life. And they found out, no, we won't. We'll have a life where both parents have to work. We have to send our kids to awful public school or even a private school that's not teaching them much. And we have to struggle to just get by. And these individuals in the Pew Research Center's polling haven't even done that. They're living with their parents, or they're living with a roommate or something. They haven't even got to that point. So they're even behind that kind of failure. Now, my point is, I want you to be educated. Education is so valuable. I stress being educated. But if you think you're going to go to college and that's going to make you educated, you are delusional. And if you think you're going to go to college and that's going to somehow get you this great life and career and finance and everything's going to be great, that's not true. For some people that works and that happens, and that's great. But we're seeing 50% of the population, ages 18 to 34, has to live with someone else to survive. These aren't thriving people. You don't go move back in with your parents, 32%, and it's actually the number gets higher when you get up in age. It was something like the 25 to 29 range. It was over 40% were living with their parents or grandparents. That's tragic. And so that number may actually be above 50% total living outside, having to live with someone else, including their parents and grandparents. And my friend, that's not a life. That's just being a kid that's aged. Education is valuable, but too many people are looking to college to educate them and give them this magical career that they think is going to exist that doesn't exist anymore. These kind of things don't exist, and with technology going the way it's going, even if you can get in one of those kind of careers, your job may eventually be replaced by a robot or by artificial intelligence that can do your job 1,000 times better than you can do it, longer than you can do it, doesn't need a break, and more accurately than you could ever do it. Many, many people right here and now are going to college and they're being set up for failure. They're being set up to be the peasants in the kingdom where the elites are ruling. And they are choosing that willfully because they've refused to even consider, why am I going to go to college? What is this really going to do for me? Is it smart to go into college and have $100,000 in debt when I'm done? Or $40,000, doesn't matter what it is, any kind of debt for your education when you're done and you have nothing to do except go back to live with your parents. Now you're living with your parents, you're working some entry-level job somewhere because your degree got you nothing, and you have debt to pay. That's tragic, my friend. That's not wise. And so understand, like I said, I'm stressing education, but education is something you do consistently for the rest of your life. You don't stop it when you get out of college. And I've heard people literally say when they got out of college, that's it, I'm done learning. I've learned all I need to learn. Think of the arrogance and the ignorance of that all in the same time. That's the end of education. That should be the beginning of your education. And if you're going to go to college just to get educated and to learn more, that's great. But if you're going there thinking that besides the education, you're going to somehow get some career, it's going to be great, and it's going to make your life go well, it's not. That's just not the reality for most people today. And what's not mentioned in this study is the other 50% who are not living with their parents, who are not living with someone else. We don't know their financial situation. They might be in a really sad position where they're living with their spouse, they have kids, they're having to work full-time jobs, send their kids to awful public schools, and they have no money saved up, they have tons of debt, still have student debt, and they're getting nowhere. They're just not as far behind as the people who had to move back in with their parents, but they're still getting nowhere. And that's tragic, because these kids went into college truly believing that all they had to do is go get their education in college, get a degree, and that would put them in a good position in life. And they were lied to. Matter of fact, many of them got out and went right back to jobs that they had before they went into college. So they literally went nowhere, except now they've taken on a lot of debt, and any knowledge they gained from college is slowly dripping and dwindling away daily, because they're not improving themselves each and every day. They're not educating themselves each and every day. They're at a standstill because they thought that's all they had to do. This is it. This is my last of my education. And I get out of college, now I'm going to have this career, now I'm going to have this great life. Life's going to be set, and it's not. So my friend, I can't tell you what to do about college, but I can tell you that you need to be wise. You need to really research and consider what you're doing, what field you're going into. Because like I said, maybe getting into robotics and programming artificial intelligence and managing those kind of things, that might be wise to go to college for that. And obviously a lot of scientific endeavors, even though those are being replaced by AI and by robotics right now. But that might be wise. But for most people, this is a fool's errand to get into college, go through all this effort, get into debt, and then have to go right back to where you came from, having progressed none. Now, some of you may say, well, that's just in the U.S. I live over in the European Union, so it doesn't affect me. No, it does. In the European Union, it's just as bad. There's 48% of young adults are living with their parents. In Macedonia, for example, 70% of people 18 to 34 live with their parents at home or grandparents at home. There's not been like this any time in history. In many places, these are numbers that have never been seen in history. This just wasn't the way things were. And so I have to stress to you, if you go to college, it's fine, but once you've gotten out of it, you have to keep educating yourself. Don't get stuck in this rut so you have to live with your parents the rest of your life. Because here's the thing that most of these college graduates have done, is they stopped. Their education ended when that degree was handed to them. And they haven't learned a thing since. Except maybe if they had some job and they had to learn something new and they were forced to. But that's it. Them willfully choosing to learn new things has not happened. And it doesn't even matter what you're learning. If it's a language or learning a craft, you'd be amazed the real world benefits learning and constantly learning and improving yourself has in all areas of your life, including business and career and job prospects. You're going to be in a different level than the average person coming out of college has nothing except for college to show for their life. They haven't done anything, they haven't learned a single thing, and they're not going to, because they've resignated themselves to that was what they needed to do as far as education goes. Now they're done educating themselves, except for this random things that a job may force them to learn. Put yourself in the best position you can possibly be in. Learn new things. Take on a new language. You can learn a new language. You can learn better, improve skills you already have and make them better. Increase those assets, those skills that you do have. There's all kinds of things you can do. Don't get stuck in this college trap where you have ended your education. You have ceased to improve. You cease to be educated. Because don't think that because you got educated one time, that's it. Now you're educated. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the years who are very educated with degrees, and they know almost nothing. They've forgotten 80% of what they supposedly learned in college. And many of them are getting degrees in useless studies that did nothing for them. And I've talked to some of these people and said, what college did you go to? I didn't go to college. I didn't even graduate high school. No, come on, really, where'd you go? This is the sad thing. They're in worse positions, those people who didn't graduate college, who didn't graduate high school, because they haven't even continued to learn. And as an employer, if I see someone didn't graduate high school, but they're constantly learning and improving and educating themselves, I'm going to take that person over somebody with 50 degrees any day. Because all the person that has the degrees has shown me is one thing, which is a good thing, that they can accomplish and achieve a goal that they set for themselves. They follow through on things. That's a good thing. But they've also shown me that they're not people who think for themselves. They're not entrepreneurial types. They're not go-getters. And they follow what the traditional path that's been laid out before them tells them to do. And so that's a detriment. But you can be different. You can be someone who goes to college and continues to educate yourself. And I've known people like that. And they have the best of both worlds. Because they're not going to stop their education when they get out of college. They're constantly learning and improving themselves. And they're great. They don't settle for mediocrity. They don't settle for just enough. They don't settle for good enough. They continue to improve themselves. So if you're going to college, if you have went through college, it doesn't matter what position you're in, don't stop learning. Continue to educate yourself. Don't get trapped in this path that has been laid out for you by people who want you to be employees. Don't confuse yourself and think the school system's set up to train you to be the best you could possibly be. It's set up to train you to be a good worker for someone else. It's not set up for any other reason, including colleges. You may think, well, they let us work on our art and poetry and things we think of. That's just wasting your time. That's just killing time until you get out of the college. Still, the end goal there is for you to go work for someone else. And there may be some exceptions, obviously, business schools that teach entrepreneurship and are really focused on people starting their own businesses. But that's rare. That's not most people. Most people going to college are going to college to get a career. You can be different. You can be someone who went to college for education, to learn, to become better. And you continue that once you get out. You never stop that. You continue each and every day. And you'll be one of these people that will rise above all the rest. Because I'm telling you, as an employer, when I see someone who's constantly learning, and I ask them, what book have you read? And instead of telling me either I haven't read anything, or they're telling me some fiction. Well, I read this book about neuroplasticity. I read this book about quantum physics. And they're showing me that these are people who continually are learning and improving themselves. I want that. I don't care if you went to college or didn't go to college. But if you're doing that, that stands out. That's someone who's very different and unique. And going to college or not going to college doesn't change that. Because most people who go to college do not do that. Go talk to your average college graduate. That's just not what they're doing. They're not consistently learning each and every day. Don't let that be you. Be the one who is learning each and every day, who is improving themselves each and every day, and is growing and becoming better. My friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.